Nice.
Warning, this podcast may contain bad language and content and guide dogs that some listeners may find offensive. Are they any good? We're about to find out.
Yep. It's been nearly 4 years, many episodes on guide dogs. This might be the one where we burn all the bridges, if there are bridges, and
Okay.
nothing to add there.
And as usual, Selina contributes nothing to the intro.
I honestly don't know where you're going with that. Like, yeah, I feel like we've already done similar episodes. But anyway, we're doing this
Yep.
again.
Who said we're treading water?
And again, also, Selina does not come up with better ideas, but naysays the ones we have.
Yep.
Fine.
Okay.
Let's go.
Welcome one and all to Seesaw Podcast, the broken dinghy sinking in the pond of mediocrity that is podcasts. We're
It's quite
back.
elaborate.
It was, and it was totally off the top of my head. I thought of dinghy and I tried to make it work.
Right.
My
It wasn't
God.
any guide dog related.
No, that's
Well,
what I was thinking. Like, I don't know.
again, it's so easy to judge, so
Yeah.
hard to create.
You know,
The
guide
poorly
dog.
performing guide dog of podcasts.
I mean, that would have been better, but we've already missed the boat on that one, or the
The
dinghy.
dinghy. Hey, and we're back. All right.
Yeah,
That came
Okay.
around full circle. That's nice.
it did. I set it up, and it luckily worked, I guess.
I don't know why you'd have a dinghy in a pond. That was just
Yeah, that doesn't make a lot of sense,
Yeah,
admittedly.
that's the takeaway
for
from
your-
my analogy.
It's for your action man and your Barbies.
I guess. Action Barbie. Why aren't they making that?
They probably have.
They probably have, yeah.
We
Yeah,
talked
but-
about the secrets of Barbie the other week, so
Oh, yeah. Yep. We're not
In the
going into
fourth
that
one.
again. Talk about treading ground again. I'm talking about Secrets of Barbie.
don't worry, I cut it all.
Good. Unless you're with us on Twitch, in which case,
Enjoy.
enjoy Secrets of Barbie. Okay, so before we go into the episode, let's pad it out, shall we?
Well, I mean, we're not even disguising this anymore. We're just like openly saying, here's some filler for you guys.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. So let's
Right.
start with Selena. What's been going on? How have you been doing self-sustaining?
I went to the theatre at the weekend. I went to see Murder on the Orient Express, audio described.
Oh,
Good.
had
Any more?
were you
Was
were you
the,
aware
was
of
the
the
AD
story?
good? Like,
Yeah.
was there a
I-
real train?
Not a real train. There were like people being the train.
Be the train.
It was good. I didn't know the story beforehand, and I didn't guess.
You couldn't
Who
guess what
committed
it was about
murder.
from the title Murder on the Orient Express.
No, I mean I didn't know the ending, which made it exciting.
Right, okay.
Yeah, I'd recommend it. It's not too long. I do like a musical though. I was missing some songs. I felt like it needed a song, but
I'm the opposite. That sounds like my jam. Hamilton would have been great without the songs.
oh my God, I went to see Hamilton like last month, and yeah, agreed.
Long, innit? It's all right, but it's long.
Oh, I mean, my audio description didn't work for the first half, so I basically didn't understand who was who and whatnot. Anyway, I got free tickets to go to another show next year, so because I complained, so it wasn't
Nice.
Brilliant.
I mean, if you took all the musical numbers out of Hamilton, it would be 11 minutes long.
bad.
Yes, that's my ideal play. It's like a summary on YouTube. I'd
The
love that.
Cleavs version. It's
Hmm.
shorter than the reviews.
Yeah, that'd be
It's
ideal.
very modern, edgy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, you like something that's outdated and cancelled dated to the year instead.
Yes.
Oh,
Turns out the train did it.
yeah.
Mm.
Oh, I'm not going to ask who did it. Someone might go watch it.
No, you can't spoil it. They tell you like keep it secret.
Keep it secret for what? When was the book written? Like 1911?
You will.
It's like, the story's over 100 years old at this point.
Story as old as time.
Yeah. Well, let's not spoil how World War II ended, shall we?
We
People might
won!
not know.
Oh, anyway, it's good. If anyone gets a chance to see it, I recommend it.
Where did you go see it at?
The Curve Theatre in Leicester.
Okay. They
It's
didn't
probably
have. Go on.
gone. It didn't have what?
No, no, I was. We spoke to some people at Sight Village a while back, who did like audio
Yeah, it
describe.
was vocalized. It was
Oh, was
vocalized.
it?
Yes,
Nice.
Oh,
That's cool.
they did the audio description. I missed the touch tour though, so but yeah.
thinking to
Gonna
fill the
touch the
train.
train. Yeah.
No, I didn't. And you
Non-existent
know what was
train.
a bit gutting? You know, like on Touch Tour, sometimes the characters or the cast come out that you can meet. And Sasha from Holby City was in it. And I would have liked to have met him, Bob Barrett, but never mind.
Is Hobby City still on?
No,
I didn't know.
that's why he's
Oh,
in
okay.
New York
Thank
Spence.
God. Okay.
New job.
Well, we'll see what one pays better, I suppose. Cleaves, what's been going on with you?
Um, so I went to the hospital a while back. Anyway, I went to the hospital again on Friday, just because I like to show my face around there. They know me by first name terms now. You know, when you have to go to each part of the hospital and they say, "What's your name, your date of birth?" They don't. They just look at me and carry on.
Nice. Speeds it up.
Um, yeah. Nah, they didn't really do much. They basically just did a refraction test, which is, are your glasses what they should be? Turns out they are. And then
Oh.
the guy told me, he was just like, oh yeah, your eyes aren't working as good. I'm like, yeah, no. So you got any questions? I was like, yeah, this, and this. He's like, yeah, we can't do about any of that and do anything about any of that stuff. I'm like, so what a pointless trip this has been. Like, why am I even here? See you again in a year, I guess. Bye.
Hmm.
Wow. Wow. The saga continues.
Yeah, and that's it. That was it basically.
Mm.
Had a response on my NHS complaint today. I haven't read it yet though.
Oh.
Um,
Oh,
yeah,
that
sorry,
was the
bro.
saucy thing, that was.
Yeah, I know. Well, I did something else saucy before this and made a curry, so that's
All right.
why I didn't read my emails. I've been at work all day, man. It's been tough. And then, yeah, other than that, me and T went to a wedding. We didn't get
Oh.
married though.
No,
Oh.
no, not us.
Well, that would have been bigamy for the tea.
You don't know my religion. I
You
might be
don't know whether
Mormon.
he's been divorced.
Yeah.
That
Frankly,
quick black
Selina,
news.
you have very little information about this circumstance.
Yeah, don't assume. God, what year is this?
Was it a good wedding? Was it a sighted wedding? A blind wedding?
Sighted
Nah, it's a
wedding, but we were there, so
sighted wedding, and yeah, it was at like Barnes out in the countryside a little bit outside of Nottingham. It was really nice actually.
Hmm.
yeah.
Wasn't it like really stormy and chucking it down?
No, the sun
Nope.
came out actually just as the ceremony started, so it was actually really good.
Oh, that's nice. Because that would have sucked otherwise. Imagine photos like your dress blowing up.
Rain on your wedding day. Think
Yeah.
about the irony.
Think about the irony of that. Yeah. Who would want rain on their wedding day?
When did you get married? What month?
September.
Oh, okay.
And it pissed it down the entire day.
Hmm.
But it was fine. It was fine. We got some nice pictures indoors. Yeah, lovely wedding. Do love a good wedding.
Carrot
Was
cake
it?
was banging.
I was just gonna say, was it good cake? Literally what I was thinking, cake.
I
I
don't
don't
think I
like
had
carrot
that.
cake though.
Mate, the carrot cake was on point.
I had the lemon and blueberry cake, and that was
Oh,
good.
interesting. Interesting combination. I like their uniqueness.
Yeah, food was
What
banging, to be fair. The meal was great.
what was your cake, Selena?
I had three different flavors of cupcake. I think we had lemon, red velvet, and chocolate probably.
What was yours, T? Because you had cupcakes and a cake. Take that, Selena.
The cake was basically the same mix as the cupcakes, and I had four different types of cupcake.
Mm.
So have that.
We only had
Um,
like 40 guests. So it didn't, would have been like one each and nearly, like one flavor each. Mm.
Great.
I had like 110, something like that.
I guess.
Oh, stop Trump's wedding.
It is. And some of mine were German and they didn't understand British weddings and they really got into it, especially when they were drinking. And they had a really good time. Although the next day they were very hungover and it was the first time they'd ever been hungover, which was hilarious.
Did you offer free
What?
alcohol at your wedding?
Did I what?
Did you give people free alcohol? I feel like this is a thing when I go to weddings, like something I notice now,
Get a
whether they
welcome drink.
Yeah.
give a
Yeah,
free drink or not.
yeah, got a welcome drink. And then some cheeky people kept going up and asking for welcome drinks because it had been set aside and it wasn't all used until I went to the guy behind the bar. I was like, yeah, put those in the back, mate. I'll pick them up in the morning. No more champagne for free. Thank you.
There was like table wine and a keg of beer for free, weren't there, at the weekend?
Yeah,
Okay, so yeah, interesting.
yeah, it's good fun. Really good fun.
Was.
And now we'll move on to the topic. We've padded enough.
What? We can't not check in with everyone. Hey,
Ah,
share.
well, I went to a wedding.
That was Cleaves's though.
Yeah, but it's a joint thing. Me and
Oh,
T. What else? What you done on your one, T?
Ah, well, no medical updates. I can tell you that.
no.
I haven't had to go to the hospital or anything. Although I have more tests coming up, which is great. And we'll see what happens. But it's just sort of waiting in limbo at the moment. And getting ready for, well, we're all going on holiday soon, so looking forward to that.
Where
Not
you
to
going?
go. I'm going to Egypt.
You're
So
going to
Egypt.
Cleaves is going to Vietnam, and I'm going to Rhodes.
yeah,
Which road are you going on? The M25? Ah, dad
I
jokes.
think I'll find us the M1 first.
Sorry.
God, it's almost if you don't drive.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, let's dive in. Pause first into a guide dogs episode. So we have covered guide dogs in many forms, including a fantastic series which is really underrated that I did a few years back. Toot toot. So this time we're going to talk about retiring a guide dog. What goes into that, why a dog might retire, the process involved, and a bit more into
The
guide
way you said it
dogs.
was like how to retire a guide dog. Step one, crowbar. Step two, dog.
Okay. I know where this is going with you.
Yeah, it's going
Get
to
your
be a lot
sound
of
effects.
yeah.
And
So,
no, I'm just saying, the way you said it made it sound like I'm going to teach you how to retire a guide dog.
well, maybe. We'll see. So this topic has not come out of the blue. I don't think I have said on the show. I might have done, mentioned, but my guide dog Ted, at the ripe old age of 4, has been formally withdrawn as a guide dog.
Is that Ted of the famed TED Talks series
It is.
that I've heard so much about?
Yeah.
Great yet underrated.
Great, yeah, underrated series. And,
What did you say about Ted in that series?
well, you can go back and listen to those episodes sequentially. And then you can find out that I thought he was a really great dog and that he didn't last. He didn't stay great, unfortunately. So he has been withdrawn officially after some behavioral issues, should we say. And I think we didn't cover when my previous dog retired either. So it's about time to talk about this. Cleese has notes, and me and Celine have experience. So hopefully we can get some content out of this.
We're just going to continue to slam the entire piece, are we? Okay,
We
fine.
we take this very seriously, clearly.
Yeah.
Hey, it's a great show with a captive audience that know what we're about at this point.
Definitely. Although someone might think, oh, guide dogs, I'll listen to that new podcast, not come across it before. And yeah, we're really selling it to them.
See, I
If you're
think this
coming
is
in
where
for
we've
Guide
been
Dogs
going.
content, go to the previous episodes.
I think this is where we've been going wrong, and the whole captive audience. We need to genuinely capture them.
Oh, no,
Right.
we're
You
not
guys have both
advocating
had.
kidnap.
Okay, so you guys have both had retired guide dogs.
I
What's the
have one
process of that?
single retired guide dog and one currently working guide dog.
You still retired one, all right? Let's
Yeah,
not
one,
let's
not
not
both.
split golden hairs on this, okay?
Yes, that is correct, Cleves. I assume you had a follow-up question to that.
Yeah, the question is, what's the process for retiring a guide dog?
Or what should be the process
What
and what
should be the
actually
process?
happened.
Okay, so what happens to a guide dog then that has actually run its course because they've got old, for example?
Okay, well, with my situation, I'm not sure if it's going to be similar or the same to Selena.
Do the
Um,
Wes one.
the Wes one.
He old.
He got old. He got to a stage when he was around 10 years old where he didn't really want to work anymore. Like, put the harness on him. He realized that if he didn't want to work, he didn't have to. And he was just a bit fed up of it at that point. So I had a conversation with guide dogs. They tried to get another couple of months out of him before I was very much, no, this isn't working at all. Like, he's literally not working.
So you're saying they tried to bleed the dog dry?
They did kind of, if I'm being honest. It was very much, oh, we can get another couple of months out of him.
The
And
reason I
it
asked that
didn't
question
work.
is just I wanted to get some context for the second dog.
Yeah. Okay. That's
Anyway,
fair.
carry on.
So I had a conversation with, I can't remember. They've changed all the terminology now. And it's like my guide dog instructor. They're called something different now. I had a conversation with them at the time. And eventually we came to an agreement that if he didn't want to work, we can't force him to. So he retired. Then give the harness back. Like, they come and picked up the harness pretty quick, to be honest.
What's the deal with
Uh,
that though? Like, did they phone like you phoned them and you said he's not working and they said retire him? What happens between the process of you ringing them, they saying retiring him and then the harness being picked up?
So this was during the COVID lockdown. So it was a very strange situation. Essentially, we had the phone conversation. They agreed that he'd be withdrawn and retired. And then they were like, well, we're going to swing by and get the harness, but we can't come in. Can you just put it outside on the doorstep? And that happened within the space of 5 hours because they had someone in the area who literally just drove up, picked up the harness, and left. And from that point, I didn't really hear anything for a week or so. Then conversations started about getting a new dog and what was happening with Wes. They said that he could go to family, but they would pick up all of the financial side of it, or he could stay with me and they would pick up financial side of it. I picked up the food costs, but they said they'd pick up the veterinary bills because he was always a problem child. Like, it had massive surgeries and all sorts of stuff. And I was like, yeah, if you don't pay for that, I can't keep him. I know how expensive he's been. And then they just sort of left me to it, to be fair. Like, it was just like they washed their hands of the dog. Like, there was no checking in, no aftercare, no nothing to make sure that he was okay. It was just like, yeah, he's retired. It's your responsibility now. See you later. And that's basically how he retires. And then, unfortunately, around 18 months after he did retire, he unfortunately passed away from an undiagnosed health condition, which, if we were to try and find out what it was, it probably he wouldn't have survived exploratory surgery. So he wasn't getting better. So we had to, unfortunately, make a very tough decision, because he was not in the best of health, as you would know yourself, Cleese, because you were there at that time, and he was not in a good place.
He
So
won.
he didn't have long after his retirement, unfortunately.
He wouldn't even eat the damn carrots that I'd given him at some points. And he
No,
used to love carrots.
yeah, he used to love everything. He used to love food, his carrots, his biscuits, for going for walks, and by the end, he was struggling to walk, and I had to carry him outside to use the bathroom. He'd go, and then I'd carry him back to his bed. and that was it. Like, you know, there's something wrong with a Labrador when they don't want to eat, when they don't want to go for a walk. So he basically just switched off, and he was just like, "No, I'm done." So we had to make the hard decision, unfortunately, and it was best for him. He wasn't getting better. He was extremely anemic. That's all we knew, but we didn't know the cause of it, outside of potentially a growth which they couldn't operate on. So he was not going to get better, unfortunately. So
Mm.
after retirement, unfortunately, didn't have a lot of time with him. He didn't get a lot of retirement time, which was a shame because he did work hard throughout his life. Um,
Not
and
to like quantify it though, but he was quite old, right? Even for Labrador standards.
he was 12 when he passed away, and Labradors they lived to 12 to 14, some lived to 15. So he was a little bit. It wasn't an unforeseen age. Like, it wasn't a shock at that age for him to pass away, but it was a little bit on the younger side for an older dog. Like if he wasn't ill, he probably could have gone another year and a half, maybe two. But the illness got him, unfortunately. Um, but he'd always had health issues. Like, I didn't think he'd ever make it to the 14, 15. Like, he had two major surgeries in his life with like 6 weeks of rehab with guide dogs on two different occasions. So, like, I knew that he wasn't going to make it that far, not with the mass amount of surgeries and health issues he did have.
Mm. And Selena, what about you with your first dog?
So my first guide dog, Calvin, legend. Um, he he is different. He loved being a guide dog. He loved working. He never showed signs that he didn't want to work anymore. When he was about 10, which seems to be the standard for guide dogs, they had the chat about putting me back on the list. And once they get to that age, they kind of start looking at retirement. So I went back on the waiting list to wait for what is now Riley. But Calvin continued to work. And as we know, the waiting list is very long. And then Calvin got to 11 years old. We had our aftercare visit. The guy that came out originally, one of the GDMIs or whatever you call them, was like, yeah, he's still doing well. He's still doing well. Obviously, there's no dog on the horizon for you, so carry on. And then a couple of weeks after that, I got a phone call from like the manager of guide dog saying, you need to retire your dog, basically because he's old. I was like, but he's fine. He wants to work. There's nothing wrong with him. And I didn't want to be without a dog. Argued my case. And then they said they wanted him to come into Leamington for an assessment, to actually look at him properly.
Well, like when old people have to retake their driving license.
Yeah. So we had to go over to the guide dog officers in Leamington, and he had like a full, MOT to see where he's at. And they were like, yeah, he's in pretty good health, except for some arthritis. Get him on some at this point he wasn't even on any painkillers or he was on U-Move, but nothing serious. So put him on some painkillers. They said they would be in touch. They didn't say that he needed to retire. I didn't chase it up. And yeah, so carried on working him until I went to a guide dog like assessment day for people that have been waiting for a guide dog for a long time. And then obviously I'm talking about Calvin there. Yeah, he's still working, 11 and a half. And then I think there was a bit of some wires crossed, but that maybe someone should have followed up that he should have retired by now, but he hadn't, and still nobody contacted me. So we carried on. And then in the November of that year, I got matched with Riley. And then we started our guide dog training in the January. So I basically worked Calvin up until just before, well, about just shy of his 12th birthday. I didn't have a gap between guide dogs because guide dogs kind of messed up and forgot to retire him really and take the harness off me. So I just gave the harness back when I started training with Riley. I kept Calvin. The plan always originally was for him to go to my parents, and yeah, for them to pay, like he said, that the bills for him. Because originally I was living by myself, but in between all that time of guide dog chat, Santi moved in, yeah, with me, and then I thought, oh, now he's around to walk Calvin, maybe I can keep him. And then if I'd known that originally, that they actually, again, cover most of the costs if you actually keep the dog and it doesn't go to family, I would have gone down that route straight away. So yeah, I paid like £25 a month, I think, as a donation to guide dogs as part of Calvin's retirement, but they still covered all of his food and his vet bills. And so yeah, I had both Calvin and Riley at home with me. And Calvin probably passed away 14 months, I think, after he retired. So he was 13, 4 weeks after his 13th birthday. We found out that he had cancer. And it was pretty quick, to be honest. The deterioration for him, which was sad, but he must have had it for like a long, long time, but without showing any symptoms. And then as soon as he was diagnosed, it was like, yep, that's it. Okay, this is serious. But a few weeks before he got cancer, he actually got high on weed. And they never noticed anything then when he had to go to the pet animal
Maybe that's it. You
hospital
just
for a
needed some
night
dog
stay.
CBT, like CBD.
So he picked it up on one of our walks. I didn't know what he picked up at the time, something in foil. And then we get
Yeah,
home.
right. Straight out your back pocket. Got it.
We got home and I went to feed him and he was just like patting his Kong wobbler and like not doing much. It's like, oh my God, there's something seriously wrong with my dog. I thought he was dying there and then, to be quite honest. Had to like be like lifted up and carried to the vet. And then they come out, like this was COVID times. So I wasn't allowed to go in. They took him in and then bring him out. It's like, yeah, we think your dog's a bit high. Started walking now. He's just a bit, So he had to spend the night in the animal hospital. And he was all fine then. And when they did all his bloods, they didn't spot any cancer or anything. And then a few weeks later, all things changed, unfortunately. But I like that he, lived his retirement to the full.
Yeah.
Do you find it weird? Like, humans often they say once you retire and you don't have anything to do, like no sort of purpose for work or things like that, that your body starts to decline. Do you think that's similar in both those dogs' case?
Maybe.
But it's old age as well, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, Wes wasn't as old as Calvin, but I did find that he deteriorated quite quickly after retirement. He did have arthritis in his hips, which is one of the reasons that he didn't want to work. We had to make adaptations, like when they were squeezing the last out of him, even from like his basic training of they don't, from my knowledge, get all dogs to do this now, but when he was trained, always sitting down at a curb, and I couldn't set off until he sat. And they just squeezed a little bit of work out of him. They're like, don't make him sit at a curb anymore.
Yeah, same happened for us as well. We stopped the sitting with Calvin after a few years because it's bad on their joints. And they don't sit, well, Riley doesn't sit at all at curbs now. I think they've completely taken that out of training because it's just bad for the dogs.
Yeah, yeah. I was never told to get Ted to sit. I was never given that as an indication. Like, just let him stand there. As long as he's stopped, it doesn't matter. They don't care.
So just before we move on to your new dogs, you both had your old guide dog, albeit retired, with a new guide dog. What was that like?
It was. I wish they had had more time together. Unfortunately, when Ted came in, Wes was only with us for 4, 5 months. They, he was really getting on well at that point. I think he had a good 2 weeks to a month of being himself with Ted and enjoying the company of another dog. And then he started to decline. And Ted didn't understand that at all. Like he just sees another dog and he wants to have fun and have that experience. I mean, it's helpful to have someone around if they can walk the retired dog. I think that's a must if you're on your own and you're offered like, do you want to keep your dog and get a new guide dog? Maybe that's something you have to consider because if it wasn't for my wife being about, I wouldn't have done that. I wouldn't have kept hold of Wes. There's no way I could have walked him and worked Ted, not unless I daisy chained them, which is going to be a nightmare. So, so I think that's something that has to be considered. And if the circumstances would have been different, then they wouldn't have been around each other. But they got on well enough um, until Wes started getting a bit unwell, and then he didn't want anything to do with anyone. Not me, not Ted, not my wife, no one. Like he just didn't care by the end. He just completely switched off. But they got on okay for the time that Wes was healthier, I suppose.
See, I think I was quite lucky. I had both boys together for just over a year, and most of that time was lockdown. So actually, I probably got to spend a lot more time with Calvin in his retirement than I would have done if it wasn't lockdown, because I would have been out and about, obviously, with Riley. So that was nice, and they had a very brotherly relationship. Calvin would basically take all the toys off Riley and say, "Nope, you're not having that. That's mine." They used to play tug a lot. Calvin would always win because he's a bit bigger than what Riley is, and never mind being older, he was still stronger. But then Riley knew he had youth on his side, so when they were playing and Riley might get a toy, and he knew Calvin couldn't just like run up the stairs, Riley would just run up the stairs and like, ha, you can't get me, and like just be wagging his tail up the top of the stairs, looking down at him. They had a very good relationship. And when I used to like groom Riley, Calvin would come and help and lick him, and it was very cute. So yeah, I think Riley's personality really changed though when Calvin passed away. Riley definitely became more confident and more, become his own dog and get his own little quirks that he does now, like stealing socks and the whatnot. But yeah, I really enjoyed having both of them together.
Nice. So T, if we move on to Ted, because Ted's a bit of
Yep.
a different story, isn't he? He's retired quite
Yeah.
young. How did that go down?
He's retired very young. Um, no- so when I trained with Ted, this was just coming out of lockdown. Like it wasn't far after lockdown. Like there was still a little bit, yeah, there's still masks and things were being phased out, but depending on where you went. So I just thinking how to phrase it. So Ted was trained in a different way to Wes, and from discussions I've had with you, Selena, different to Riley and Calvin. Like Ted is one of the new style dogs.
Let me tell you about that. In 2017, guide dogs replaced their previous training method with a new method called STEP, which stands for Standardized Training for Excellent Partnerships.
Mm.
Whether
Well,
you believe that to be true or not,
Are they
well,
it's been
axe
criticized
it.
apparently for causing longer waiting lists and for less dogs to be qualified.
Well,
Go on, T.
considering that they're getting rid of that as a training method tells you everything you need to know about what's
I couldn't
happened.
find that anywhere online.
From what I've heard, they are revising how they're training. So the new training, I found it very strange. I was open to everything. Like I'm not going to tell them how to suck eggs. Like they're the charity. Like they're the ones who are supposed to be the specialists. So there was a lot of changes, and I just embraced them. It's like okay, that's fine. Uh, with Wes, I was never like I'd never fed him when we were working. But like, no, food is an incentive. Always keep biscuits with you, and every time he does something good, give him a biscuit. I think, okay, I'm not used to doing that. There was always this expectation that my dog would just do its job. But it was like, okay, fine, I can kind of get behind that. And also, you can't say no to the dog anymore. You have to
Yeah.
encourage the positive behavior that you want the dog to do. What they don't say, and this is something I did ask when I was doing the training and never got a satisfactory answer. How do I set barriers for unacceptable behavior outside of distraction and just try and get them to do what I want them to do? Never got a satisfactory answer for that because there's one thing to encourage positive behavior, but if a dog's going to be naughty or do something that you would deem very unacceptable, considering what they're there to do, there was no way of managing that at all. I was never told that that's something that he would recognize because that's not how he was trained. At least with Wes, he knew no meant no, and he knew it was a negative thing. Checking him with the harness, which is something that you don't do often, but were trained. If you checked with the harness, which is a little flick on the handle, that's telling them that is an unacceptable behavior. Focus up, get back to work, pretty much. That's something you
Well,
use very
I've got a quick
sparingly.
I've got a quick little stat for you. According to The Guardian, the number of guide dog owners in the UK has dropped from over 5,000 in 2017 to 3,695 as of 2022, despite there being stable demand, and it's largely attributed to this new step method.
Yeah. I think the step method, I don't think it works. I think because of the way guide dogs are trained, because you have the puppy walker, and they're with like foster families for a long period of time, you're always going to have mixed results and inconsistencies within there. There's not standardization. If guide dogs had them all in house from 6 weeks until they were qualified, then you would have more control over that consistency of training. I don't think they have that. And I think STEP makes it very difficult to set those boundaries. And it's more likely there's going to be too much flexibility. Because as the year or so's been going on, it's nearly 2 years before he retired being with me. He's just progressively gotten worse and worse. And even flagging with guide dogs, again, I never got a satisfactory response of how can I stop him pissing on everything? Even on trainers, like, oh, he does like to mark. I'm like, yeah, but you can't do that. I don't want him to do that. And like, oh, I'll take us to the toilet before you go out. It's like, yeah, I do that. Don't tell me how to suck eggs. I've been working dogs for like a decade at this point. Like, I know the routines, but then it kept getting worse and worse and worse. And I never got a satisfactory answer of, okay, how do I give him a biscuit to stop him peeing on everything? There's no way of doing that. And then he would just start to lose focus in other ways. And because I didn't have the tools to be able to basically set the barriers, like for him, for his standard of work, just little things would just keep creeping in. And again, flagging it with them. And Nottingham, unfortunately, they've had a lot of staffing issues. I've never had an aftercare visit. And well, after qualifying, I think I got one email once to just check in and say, everything okay? I was like, yeah, it's all fine. Then no aftercare visit. And then the next time I spoke to guide dogs was me letting them know that he's not good enough to the point where I couldn't trust him. And I have enough residual sight in the day, and it is a partnership. And I've got enough residual sight in the day to be able to make up some of his inadequacies, which I shouldn't be doing. But I did it because I know that they can be good when they're working well.
Some people are going to ask the questions, T. Do you believe that to be true? Do you think that maybe because you haven't worked him as much, because you don't work on site as much anymore, that you've let those standards slip?
I can see how people would say that, and maybe there's a grain of truth to that. But that doesn't mean I haven't been working him. And
Do you think he's been worked as much as he should be? I mean, it's a young guide dog at the end of the day. He's got to be walked like daily and shit. He's pent up full of energy.
I think that he's worked not maybe to the same level as Wes was, but he was worked a lot. Could you make the claim that it could have been worked more? Yeah, absolutely. Could have been worked less? Yeah, absolutely. But my concern of it was that this was starting after 5 or 6 months when you're building that relationship with the dog. And to say that I've had scrapes and incidents with him from the off, I mean, there've been a fair few of him just not paying attention and then putting me in situations I shouldn't have been put in. And at that point, you're trying to build up that trust with the dog and you're trusting that they've been trained to a standard. Unfortunately, when they are showing that they're not exactly working the best, it's hard to put your faith in them. And it's an important thing because you've got to put 100% of your trust and reliance in that dog. And you go through stringent training to make sure that that foundation is there. And unfortunately, that trust never developed because he unfortunately was doing things like peeing on everything, like trying to eat everything on the street. And this was from the off, even on the training he was doing this, which would make you think, okay, that ain't right. But, as long as he does a good job. But then one too many lampposts, like brushes with lampposts and things like that. And then your trust is broken. And at that point, it's very hard to go out in the evening where I have no residual sight and put my faith 100% in that animal to do a job which I know they can't do or they don't care about doing, or it seems like that.
That's fair. Just wanted to ask the question.
No, it's a fair question. It absolutely is a fair question.
And you
I
feel from your side that you put the effort in to make that trust and partnership and bond work.
Yes, I feel like I did. I put my trust in him in the same amount of what I would have done with Wes. Because I did have Wes.
But it's not the same dog.
It's not the same dog, but because I had always been putting my trust in that dog, I had the innate trust that could come with a guide dog, knowing that they can make mobility mindless and like you can, well, not mindless, but they can make it a lot easier for you, especially with established routes.
Hmm.
But then when he's not doing that, even on routes that we've done, like,
But how did you respond to that? Because you're saying you didn't have the tools to enable him to do a better job. But what I found in my personal experience, the enthusiasm that I needed to work Calvin is a different level to what I need to work Riley. Riley needs like you to be 1000 over the top, super encouraging, like up there. Do you think
yeah,
Ted needed that more? Woo, this is doing really well. Good boy all the time. Whereas, did you look when he was doing bad things? Were you getting stressed and angry and cheesed off, or were you encouraging him in the positive way that he needed?
Also, as a caveat to that, I guess you can't punish the bad behavior under the guide dog laws. So that must have also been a bit of a struggle.
yeah. I gave him because I did the 5 week training with guide dogs, and they knew Ted a lot better than me. So during that time, it was not just him getting used to me and doing some route stuff, but also how to get the best out of him. And that's something that I carried over from the training. And yeah, there was a slight difference between him and Ted. Like he didn't Ted doesn't need 100% like full energy from me, but he did need more than Wes. And I did give him that. Was I frustrated? Not to begin with. I I thought it was fine to begin with. And then it gets to a point where he's walked me into a bollard, it's pissing it down with rain. He doesn't seem to give a shit. And I want to get home quickly before the sun goes down. Can I say that I don't lose my temper with the dogs? Never have. But me being stressed, well, absolutely. There would have been times where I would have been stressed out. But that was usually as a result of things he had done or things that he was not doing, even with the encouragement. So I think his behavior was I can only do as much as I can do. I think with guide dogs, they're not robots. Some people think they are. They're not. They are animals. They do need support from you. It's a partnership. But at the same time, Ted wasn't even doing the basics of what I needed him to do. And me making up the rest of what I think he should have been doing, even on the training, some of the stuff that I was having to make up for, got to a point where I was thinking, well, who's the one in charge here? Who's the person leading this partnership? It should really be him with me supporting him. And it never really felt like that.
Do you attribute to that though? So, according to the New Scientist, only 70% of guide dogs that actually enter training actually come out completing it successfully. And according to former guide dogs employees, that's down 25%, the pass rate. Do you attribute the lack of passing down to the step method and also even the ones that have passed being slightly worse, dare we say, down to this new method?
I think so. I mean, Ted was trained during COVID, and he was one of three dogs that passed. The other two didn't. Being trained in COVID, it meant that he wasn't going into restaurants, busy restaurants. It means he wasn't going on busy public transport. All the things I needed. And
Okay, yeah,
as
but is that a result
always,
of COVID dogs or is that a result of the way in which they're trained?
I think it's a bit of both. I can't attest to like how the training is for dogs outside of COVID, but he wouldn't have had the same exposure as other dogs. And his behavior aside, guide dogs are trained to not react to certain stimulus because they have to work. A siren freaks him out and he becomes useless. A fire alarm, car alarm freaks him out, he becomes useless. A firework, useless.
I mean, that's dogs though, right? Dogs hate fireworks.
Fireworks, I can at least consider that okay, that's fine. But the other things, he should have
That
had
sounds
so much exposure of that.
I don't know because Riley and I qualified a month before lockdown, so he was trained obviously in normal times, and he's very sound sensitive. And the person that matched us wasn't actually his guide dog trainer. And then when his guide dog trainer came out and saw where I lived, like right on a dual carriageway, and we walk under motorway bridges and over motorway bridges, she's like, "Oh my God, I never would have matched this dog with you if I knew this environment." But actually, yeah, Riley hates it. He hates motorbikes. He hates going under those bridges. But the way I have to combat it is with me being super, super over hyper and excited, and he gets through it and mans up and legs it through.
But is that fair on you?
It's fine. It's a partnership, isn't it? Like Riley, sometimes one of his quirks is that he will just stop walking, like just stop dead. Just like that. Nah, I think I'll just stand here. Do you know what? If we're going home or something, because it's like we've done what we needed to do. I don't really want to go home. This is boring, and he just stands there. So I used to get stressed about it, but actually, no. I just tell him, stop being silly. Like, come on, and they feed off you and how you react. If I start getting stressed, he's just going to get more stressed and like, but yeah, I'm definitely not walking or working then. It's hard work having a guide dog. It isn't as easy as
A cane.
I said they're not robots.
Yeah.
Having a cane, you don't need to force your cane to do stuff. Not force Riley to do stuff, but he's got his own mind, and you've got to appease him, which I do, and that's how we work together.
All
No,
right, so I have some
okay.
final quick fire questions for you both, I guess. From what I've seen online, guide dogs over the course of their life between 35 and 55,000 pounds.
Yeah.
Worth it? Not worth it.
It's a high figure.
I don't think it's worth it.
Ooh.
If I'm being honest, not after my experience. And just to I know we're running along, but to cap off my experience with Ted, he wasn't reassessed when I had that conversation with guide dogs about his working ethic. They just literally went, "Oh, do you just want to retire him then?" Which leads me to believe they knew he was a problem child. They maybe knew he wasn't as good as he should have been. And the whole passing off as, oh, you're young, you can have a more difficult dog. Well, you know what? I don't want a fucking difficult dog. I want a dog that does a good job. That's what I want. Don't I think all of them are difficult dogs. I think that's how they pass it off. And the fact that I didn't have any reassessment, no one came out to me, no one did an aftercare. It was just very much, oh, okay, if you're sure. And like you said, with that amount of money that's been put in to each dog, they were very, very quick and quite happy to wash their hands of that working dog.
Well, all right. Let me ask you that same question, Selena. What do you reckon? Worth it, not worth it?
Such a difficult one. I think it is a lot of money that we have to get from the public, and I kind of half feel that they're kind of not worth that amount, but I go and help with fundraising because I feel like I need to do my bit for the dogs that I've had like over £100,000 worth. So I am a guide dog speaker. I go out and do talks. I stood in supermarkets shaking a bucket, although you're not actually allowed to shake buckets. Stood there with a bucket raising money for guide dogs because at the end of the day they are better than a cane. And when you are able to walk
Strong.
down the street really fast, it's the best feeling ever.
Okay. As a follow-up to that, then, both of you had retired guide dogs, and you looked at about a year and a half, right, where they're effectively pets, but they've worked a long time. But in T's case with Ted, he's retired at 4, and you effectively had a glorified pet for the last year at least, and he's going to have one for probably close to 10 years. Is that worth it for someone that is paying guide dogs?
No, absolutely not. No, I'm glad that I have him. Like, don't get me wrong, I do like him. Contrary to
Like,
what
love him. Come
okay,
on.
I love him. Okay. Contrary to all of my criticisms before, he is a lovely boy. He's a sweetheart, and I do have a lot of affection for him. Is it fair for
Is
that
it
he's just
fair
going
for
to be?
other people that are giving their hard-earned cash that are potentially paying for 8 years worth of pet as opposed to working dog?
Oh no, not at all. But if guide dogs were to say to me, "We're going to retrain him as a buddy dog," then I'd be like, "Okay, fine." But they have no interest in having him back. They have no interest in that. Like he could be a great buddy dog.
So that you would think that money should be better spent on retraining as opposed to just here's a pet.
I think it depends on the situation, doesn't it? Like I think at his age and with his issues, I think retraining to be a guide dog would be a very difficult thing. But buddy dogs have less demands on them. Being one of their sponsor dogs, like for fundraising. Again, like if they've said, you know, 'cause ultimately it's a contract, you borrow the dogs from them. That's the agreement. Like they're not your dog. It's guide dog's dog. You just look after them. Like they're there to support you, but it's not your dog. So if they said to me, you know, any other option, then who am I to say no? I can't say no. It would have been very much no. Well, it's your dog. If you want to use him as a buddy dog, I can't say anything.
Yeah.
But that was never anything that came up. Like they just seemed like they didn't. It sounds bad, but it sounds like they didn't want him back, to be honest. And is it fair that other people pay for that? No. But
Do you think it's concerning that other people are not quite sure where their money is going?
People don't know where their money is going because actually they're called guide dogs, but they do a lot of non-guide dog things now. And this is a big issue that a lot of guide dog owners are saying that it's not about the dogs anymore. They have big children's services, and people think they're giving money to these cute dogs that are changing lives, but actually they're not. A lot of the money goes to the dogs these days.
you could say the same about any charity, though. Like, look at a charity like RNIB fighting sight loss. Is that what they do? How much research are they funding? You know, I think that's a systemic charity problem. You pay into huge organizations and guide dogs for all the money it costs for them to train and support these dogs. They're not poor. they're one of the biggest, richest charities in the UK. They are
Out of
they're lo-
curiosity, as a Price is Blind exercise, let's say there's a person that owns, or I say owns, is the leader of a large charity regarding dogs.
mm,
Let's say his name is Richard, but he's not a dick.
all right.
What do you think this person would be paid an annual salary? Let's say he's had a pay rise the last 3 years.
I would say a conservative guess of around £270,000 a year.
What?
Selena
No,
P.
no. I was thinking 100,000.
Selena P, you're closest without going over. You're a Price is Blind winner at 130K according to a cursory Google.
A lot of money though, isn't it?
It is quite a lot of money, and apparently there is 17 people within the Guide Dogs organization that make over £60,000 a year. Guide dog trainers, apparently, again according to a very cursory Google, make between 10 to £35,000 a year. But it also apparently in its initial phases costs £10,000 a year to raise or train a guide dog.
Mm.
And then the rest of the money is obviously spent throughout its life. But some of them have like huge operations and things like that, so it's going to cost considerably more. I imagine Wes was an absolute money pit.
I saw I saw some documents that I probably shouldn't have been privy to. And after he had the huge growth removed from his leg, he needed like 6 weeks to basically learn how to walk again after the surgery. It was huge, like the size of a melon. And I
I
saw
mean, a very
numbers.
small melon, because I mean, it's not going to be a
Yeah,
watermelon, is it?
yeah,
Jesus.
no, not a watermelon, but like cantaloupe melon.
Even so, probably a melon's large. A lemon, maybe.
Yeah, it's bigger
A
than a
lemon's
lemon.
large in terms of growth size
Yeah.
Well,
on a leg.
I saw numbers floating around for his rehab of around £12,000.
See, I don't ask. Like when Riley's recent operation, the vets were like, "So, do you want to know? Do you need the prices to get the approval from Guide?" I was like, "No, don't tell me. I don't want to know. I just don't want to know
Yeah,
how much I'm costing people. I don't want to know."
Is
yeah.
there any guilt from your guys' side from
Yeah,
keeping, like, I guess I'm asking a little bit more from your side, T, because you're going to effectively have a pet that someone else is paying for the next probably 8 years at least. But even when they're working, during their working life, is there maybe a little bit of guilt that other people are paying for this working animal for you?
A little bit.
But
Is it
fuck them,
gonna ch-
whatever. I got a free
is it
pet.
gonna
Thanks.
change my situation? No, it's not, and I will be selfish. And if they're willing to pay for me to keep Ted in my life, then I will.
I
Like I
guess the
said,
other
if
option, though, the other option is that dog goes to someone else, and that person is potentially paying for that dog. So it's not costing guide dogs. Is that a better option, do you think? Well, not a better option for you personally, but I mean for the
no,
person paying into the charity.
yeah, I think there is a better option. But if that's something that guide dogs were super concerned about when it comes to their savings, then them paying for you to keep the dog would never be an option.
So what you're saying is they've got too much money.
I'm not saying they have too much money. I'm just saying they are a bit free with their money. Like, I think with how Ted can be as well, maybe he'd be an embarrassment, like, to them. Like, oh, he's a retired guide dog, and people look at him and go like, "Fuck off, is he?" Just for some of the behaviours that he demonstrates. So I I do feel a bit guilty, but if they're willing to pay for it, like it's not like I'm taking this money off of like Mr. and Mrs. Smith down the road. Well, I might be
I
indirectly,
see. Hmm.
might be, but
I can tell you it ain't me anymore.
no. But that the money vaults of guide dogs. I mean, I think if they didn't get any more sponsorships, that I think they'd be fine for a decade with the amount of money they have, from what I've heard. I think they could run completely off of their coffers for at least 10 years without needing any more money. Just like other ones like RNIB, cancer research. A lot of them have
No, but
more money.
Guide dogs say they have to have in their defense that amount of spare money because obviously the dogs are going to keep living and they need that backup money for the dog's welfare going. forward. But as for the guilt question, yeah, I feel guilty about how much it costs to have a guide dog. But what I do get a little bit niggled by are potential guide dog owners or current guide dog owners that are on the waiting list. And I've waited over 2 years for both my boys. But people that complain that they're such a long wait, it's not a right to have a guide dog. It's a privilege.
Hmm.
And that that irks me a little bit. I know it's not fair. Some people do get matched quicker and all that, but it's not your right to have a guide dog.
No.
Well, another thing I saw actually, whilst I was doing a bit of my research, is that nowadays guide dogs don't even start looking to match you with a new guide dog until your old one has been retired.
Yeah, I've heard
Yeah.
about this. Yeah, I'm not sure how. I say I was lucky. I didn't have a break between dogs. I don't know how I'd feel about having a break between dogs. That's because they've got such a backlog. That's why they're just trying to.
Again, does that come down to that whole step method? Should that be changed, do you think?
I think they're going to change it.
But
Yeah.
in your case as well, because we've not really talked much about this, Selena, but with Riley's case, was he a step dog?
No, he was one of the last. The trainer that he had was refusing to go on this step training, to be honest, for as long as possible because she didn't agree with it. So he's one of the last kind
But
of
based on that, does
old
it concern
stylish.
you about your new dog? Should you get one in
I
X amount of years?
I think that it's going to have changed by the time I hopefully reapply for another dog if I do go down that route to have another dog.
On a positive note, because we've been a little bit negative on this episode, do you feel that in both of your cases, the good outweighs the bad when it is there?
Yeah, absolutely. When Wes was working well, like the improvement to my life as far as mobility was significant. Like I can't understate that. Even with like there's a lot of things that go with guide dog ownership, and Celine, you're right, it is a privilege, but there's a lot of work that goes into it on your side as well as the guide dog user. But it is worth it, or at least it was with Wes. And unfortunately, with Ted, the balance wasn't quite there. But I think it absolutely is worth it for the right person. I think you have to have a long think before you consider this as an option for you, for yourself, because a lot that goes into it.
What would you say to someone that's considering a guide dog then, in its current form with the current training?
I would tell them my situation and also the fact that I'm not going to reapply for another dog until I know Step has been changed or I hear better things about it. I've been asked if I want to reapply and I've put it off. They're going to call me in a year and see how I feel then. But with the current situation, if I'm being honest, and I don't want to, God does amazing. I want to be positive. Like that, they could be absolutely amazing. But after the current situation, I don't have the highest faith in the dogs that they're churning out.
25% less dogs as well.
Mm-hmm.
You think by that logic, the standards will be up, right? Because less people are passing, because the bar is higher. But it seems that's not the case.
Depends what metric you're using.
Mm-hmm. What about you, Selena P? Would you recommend it?
Would I recommend applying for a guide dog now? I think
I guess, yeah.
apply if you would like a guide dog, apply for a guide dog, but don't expect to get one next week, next month, next year. Just wait for the right dog. Don't be nagging them because then you probably will get a dodgy dog. Um, and then when you do get the dog, don't expect it to be, you know, perfect because they're not. And you will have to put work into it. And if you're up for that challenge, great. If not, don't be disappointed.
So in
Yeah.
summary, get a cane. It's only 40 quid.
No, that's expensive.
What?
Yeah, I'd pay 20 for one.
Yeah, probably break in like 2 seconds. You got like a guide dog as well. That's like 55 bones over the course of its life. 55. Hey, nothing compared to 40 bones.
No, that's true.
40 bones is what a guide dog probably eats in like a year.
More than that.
Guide dogs are cute though, and lovely and nice company. I've been on my own for the last 3 weeks because Santi's been abroad, and I would have been even more lonely if I didn't have Riley. He's got me out there, keeping me fit, making me walk, making me socialize and meet with friends to help, free run him and stuff. They give you a different kind of life as well. It's not all about the work, and yeah.
That's a good little thing to end on, actually, to be fair, as well, for those that do want to give their money to guide dogs and make their choice. Yeah. All right. Any final thoughts before we wrap this up?
No more guide dog episodes.
There won't be, trust me.
I think we've covered everything.
I will when the new training comes out and T's back on the list and gets.
Oh yeah, that is a good point.
We'll be bringing this back.
We'll see.
TED Talks returns.
At least I had a catchy theme song.
Yeah. Cool.
Okay. Well, to all of you listening at home, do you have a dog? Guide dog specifically? How are you finding it? Were they step trained? Are they an old school dog? Are you waiting on a new dog or your first dog? Let us know at the links coming up.
We'll see you next week, guys.
Thank you for listening to Seesaw Podcast. Your feedback and comments mean a lot to us, so if you'd like to get in touch, you can do so in the following ways.
You can find us on X at Seesaw Pod, Facebook, Instagram and YouTube at Seesaw Podcast. You can email us at seesawpodcast@gmail.com and you can stream with us live every week on Twitch at Seesaw Podcast.
Remember to like, rate, review and share with a friend.
This podcast was recorded in front of a blind audience.